We'll go ahead and get started. We're at our time and we will hopefully continue to have people come in. Our presentation today, data plus culture equals success. So before we start, a couple of things. Please go out to links.asu.edu/DC21 celebrations. Those of you here can even see the behind the scenes of how that works. We definitely want people out there celebrating the people in the data community, those unsung heroes who are out getting data all the time for you, and a way to say thank you. So it takes 2 seconds to quick Google form, so please. We'll talk a little bit about that, and don't forget the ASU Data Community Slack channel and the events website. Today, in this session, we're going to do some introductions. I have a wonderful presenter with me today, Kristin Sanchez. And we have a quick survey for you so we kind of know who's here. And then we'll go through Kristin will share her journey at ASU. I'll talk about the stuff we've done. And then I have a cooking demonstration for those that are excited to see that at the end. And we'll have some time for questions. So also, if you've seen the personas, this session is intended for any persona. It's really not. There are things geared towards everyone. So if there's something more technical than you'd like, feel free to ignore it. Or if you want other things, there should be something here for everyone. So with that, we will do some introductions. I'll start with Kristin.
Good morning, Kristin, and everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this with you. Kristin knows that when I came to ASU, I had been running my own businesses for a very long time, since I was in my early 20s, and had not been inside of an organization. I had been consulting to organizations, but not an employee or a part of an organization. And one of the reasons I took the role was because I really felt it would be a wonderful journey to experience what it's like to try to maintain some kind of momentum in culture change over time. Often my clients in the consulting world were organizations where I got to see them maybe for 6 months or a year, but not for the whole time. So now I've been here for over 3 years, and Kristin was one of the first people that I met, and began working on me, helping me to understand just how important data is to culture transformation. So I'll end it there, Kristin. Thank you.
Thank you. And I am Kristin Kennedy. I work on the data success team, where we are here to help people be successful with data. And I believe that culture is a big part of that. So with that, so we've told you a little bit about ourselves. So now we'd love for you to tell us, we have a couple questions about yourself. So if you go to slidey.com and join with DC21 Data Culture, we can then ask you just a few questions. So if you want to, you can do it from your phone or from your computer. We'd love to know what you think. What's another word you might use to describe culture? Is everyone able to get into the... There we go. Backgrounds, traditions, practices, values, norms, people.
Support system. Traditions. So it's coming up big. Does that mean that's several people have added that?
Yes, and I like to always say with a word cloud, if you put the first word that comes to your mind, but if you see a word that resonates, you can put it more than one so that you can make that word. So values and traditions right now to have the most. They seem pretty good about if somebody capitalizes or doesn't. I've had problems with that in word clouds. Those data problems we all have. Let's see if we can at least get to 13 people, a couple more people. Sorry, go ahead, Kristin.
Well, I'm really liking that someone mentioned habits, because that is the final change, is when we've created habits in our behavioral systems.
Yeah.
Family. Mm.
Let's get to 15 people. We can do it. 2 more people. This will help us know, not only today, but just give us a way to show what people think. This is great. Okay, so our next question, what is your interest in culture at ASU? So that we kind of know as we go forward, are you a data technician interested in the logistics? Are you a culture advocate or something in between? I think that's an important distinction, and that some of us make it happen and some of us shape it, and maybe they're the same. I don't know. All right. Great. And then we had one more. Oh, that was it. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
There actually was another slide, Kristin, that I see that says, what is your interest in culture at ASU? I'd love to see if we've got that.
That's this one right here.
Oh, that's that one. Okay. Okay, great. Well, so as when I came into ASU and was invited to think about what kind of a title I would like, I chose Chief Culture Officer because there wasn't one existing at UTO at the time, and it's still a fairly rare description of a position at ASU. That's going to change, I think. And the reason I focused on culture is it can hold so many different things. So next slide, Kristin, I'm going to start talking about what we've done at UTO to address culture. The first thing is, I hope that these examples will help those of you that aren't part of UTO to get some ideas about what you might do in your own workplace, and extend to you an open invitation that we can co-create a conscious collaborative culture at ASU as a whole and in our society at large, if we choose to do that, put the energy into that. So one of the first things that I did when I came was invite some people to become culture designers. And eventually those folks decided that what we needed was a community of practice inside of UTO that we call culture weavers. And this has been an incredibly important group because we have over 200 people now who have actively participated either in the biweekly meetings or in some of the team-lit meetings that work on specific cultural issues. And Kristin will tell you a little bit more about that from her perspective later on. This is a group that thinks about culture all the time and is looking to improve it. And it's a vast enough group in terms of people in different positions with different kinds of expertise that we get some really good feedback about what's working and what isn't working in the cultural realm. And then people are learning some practices that they can take back to their teams. We have a group that is called Giving Back, which is giving back to the community, which is also one of our dedications as part of the charter to impact the larger community within which we serve. Culture Ripples is an ASU-wide community of practice. So if you're at ASU, this would be something you might be interested in joining. And all you need to do is ping me. I'm Kristin.Whitney.Sanchez@asu.edu, or I'm in Slack. And Culture Ripples was started with the technology community across ASU, but has expanded beyond that because there were people in the EOS, for instance, and the biodesign unit that wanted to take some of these practices back to their groups. And so we have a really robust conversation every time we get together. And we're focusing on several areas: diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, which I know many people across ASU are now doing, self-awareness, We're focused on community building and on mapping the culture, trying to get a visual of, and this is where data really comes in handy, trying to get a visualization of where there is cultural activity, as in organizational culture activity across ASU. Kristin was behind this wonderful thing that she's been showing around now beyond UTO, the certificates of appreciation that were grounded in our positive core, our core values in the beginning. But then she turned it into this automated system that goes into the celebrations channel along with Sun Awards. And I know you're going to talk about that a little bit later too. But it's been one of the more ubiquitous, well-used little tools, little artifacts that we have at UTO that I think has made a difference in people feeling recognized and appreciated. We have a wellness community of practice, and that has all kinds of activities. We do mindful minutes 3 times a week and yoga once a week. And those are all facilitated by people within UTO that just happen to have that expertise and that passion. We have a group that is specifically focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging within UTO. We were, as a group, responsible for creating the affirmative pledge that is on our website now. And we are actively working right now on what to do to increase our diversity within the talent pools that we're looking to hire. And then we have a group called Responsible Innovation that's looking at what we do at UTO and how we create products and processes and services that are ethically responsible. That's what responsible innovation means. So there are many ways you can join in your journey. And the first is to just start with your own personal and professional growth and get interested in culture from that angle, because I think, Kristin, that must have been true for you before I met you, that you already had an interest in culture and you were looking into it. You were seeing what you might be able to do with your talents and skills. The second is that really it starts to activate strongly when you start working within teams and chapters and guilds and developing consciously, having work agreements that you use together, having processes and practices that help to create the culture you want in your team. There's evolution going on at UTO, and we have in our annual goals, culture, communications, and creativity is the first strategic priority every single year, and that gives it a lot of focus. And then we have something now that's emerging called Enterprise Technology. It's a group that's working on redesigning how we do technology across the university. And you would have a chance to enter into that work stream that's focused on communications, talent, and culture, if you are interested. Next slide. What I've learned, before coming to ASU, I knew quite a bit about using qualitative data and was honestly quite resistant to the quantitative side of things. I appreciated your keynote this morning when she was speaking about that. But what I've learned is that this data, either qualitative or quantitative, provides us with a way to look back and have some good hindsight to see what's happening currently, and also to look ahead into the future, what's being called for, what people are wanting. It sometimes feels like a sales job to people, I think, when we're talking about culture change. It doesn't have to be. People can be inspired that culture change is necessary because they can see the data, and that it's actually possible because we've done things and shown some progress. When people are making decisions, they want it to be accurate and valid and usable and relevant. And you can only get there through data. Although, as your keynote said, I do think there's no such thing as unbiased data. So we want to look at what those guidelines are for using data responsibly when we are innovating. And then at UTO, the way we're measuring culture currently, there are 3 primary ways, and Kristin's always helping me cook up other ways to think about this, that we do a quarterly culture check-in, which is like an employee engagement survey or a climate survey, and then partner up with the data team to help us visualize what that survey actually said to us, what it told us. And now we've got a stage in this where Culture Weavers, that community of practice I was talking about a while ago, is looking at the data from the standpoint of, okay, how can we respond now? You're telling us what's working and what you'd like to see changed. What are some activities that we can do in Culture Weavers that could help with that? We have quarterly UTO by the numbers, where we count basically how many people are involved, how many activities we've had, maybe what kind of impact we've had. And then we also do the quarterly reports on how we're doing with our strategic priority. The next slide, please. So this will be my last slide, and I guess I've got one more after this, and then I'd love to open it up for comments or questions, and please feel free to put things in the chat. When I think about what I've learned as part of ASU, I always knew that it was so important to have vision. What is it you want? What's that magnet, that attractive image of the future that will pull you forward to create the culture that you want? What I probably underestimated, because I always kind of had leadership support when I was a consultant, it was just part of the package. They hired me, and so I would have their backing. Without Lev's support in particular, and others at ASU who have given a lot of their weight to this work that we're doing, we wouldn't be where we are. But the heart of the work is always done by the people. It's always done in the way that I work anyway. It's an inside out kind of a job. And so making sure that we have multiple ways for people to engage in ways that fit for them. And then finally, this data that reflects back to us in that mirror I was talking about how we're doing and what we could do differently. The next slide. And so it really is this data that tell us the story of the never-ending flow that goes between culture and innovation. So if we think of culture as values, practices, behaviors, and enabling structures, so data provides some of that enabling structure, and that we do our work internally to create that, but it informs how we take our work out into the world through the goals and activities and outcomes that we have. And it is a never-ending flow. It's like an infinity symbol that puts the power of data right there in the center, I think, where it says collaboration. It's part of the collaboration between these two sides. So thanks, and any questions or comments that you might have. And you can just, we're small enough, you can certainly just go off mic and, unmute yourself is what you want to do if you have any questions or comments.
Hello, my name is Patrick Daly. I'm with Facilities Development and Management.
Hi.
Hello, which has been having a lot of conversations about culture as well. This is just kind of something I'm curious about. Do you think do you think that a strong organizational culture flows from the top down or bottom up or both, or how those interact? I'd be curious.
Yeah, I'm really trying to connote, if we can go back to that slide 15, Kristin. I think it's a combination. I basically think that the energy, the sort of driver has to be from the inside. It's not necessarily bottom up, it's sort of inside out, because in Culture Weavers, for example, we have people at all different levels of the organization, as well as different functions and jobs. But it is the leadership support that is necessary. You'll see that I've got vision and stakeholder engagement kind of on top of each other. And that's because it's the stakeholders that create the vision. It has to get support by leadership, but the stakeholders are the ones that know what they want. Does that answer your question, Patrick?
It does. Thank you very much.
You bet. It's great to hear that you're thinking about it. I'd be happy to share any time.
Yeah, mainly I think it's Alex Conan and the university architect Ed Soltero, but yeah, I'm a stakeholder, I guess.
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
And Christine, someone's asking in the chat for that Gartner link that you referenced.
You bet. Let me copy and paste that.
Okay. Well, please feel free to continue questions in the chat too, and come off mic as you want as I share some of my journey. As Christine mentioned, I was part of the designers group when it started. It was wonderful having Christine come and helping us kind of create a vision for what culture could be. Just a little bit of a background. I do work with data. I have been in IT for over 20 years now, but I have a degree in history, and I wanted to be a history teacher. Was my path. I took no computer classes or anything like that. I just sort of found data, and I always used to say that it was so weird that being a history major, I ended up in data. But it occurred to me one day in the shower, as all important things do, that history is about data, right? It may not be facts and figures. Well, there's lots of facts and figures in history, but it's also about the people and the things and letters and artifacts. Historical artifacts are really data if we think about it. So it really seemed to fit. And I think that's why I've always been drawn to culture, is that sort of social science part of it has always drawn me in. So when we started Culture Designers and we talked about a lead, I volunteered. Originally, I was communications because we didn't have a communication office at the time. And then now work on operations, because while you all probably have had initiatives where someone comes in and has a great idea and they want to do this great thing and they're willing to put in those extra hours, and it does take extra hours. And then they leave, and then everything sort of dies. And I want to, how can we use technology to help things continue on in perpetuity and not take up someone's time? But what can we, not that there is no time, but how can we make that happen? So that's kind of where I felt like operations was, how do we make things behind the scenes work to make culture work? I am an introvert, which just means, and I very much like people. So people saying that you can't be an introvert, you're not shy, which one could argue, but I get tired if I'm around people for too much. And so I really tried to address that. So often in culture, we think you have to be outgoing and have happy hours and things like that. But for many, culture is smaller and it's a smaller group. And I try to bring that and lend my expertise, if you will, on being an introvert into that. And I think I enjoy being able to contribute to culture sort of behind the scenes. That's something that has really resonated with me, and data is a great way to do that. So some examples of things that our group has done around data to help culture. And I think one of the things I've been thinking a lot about lately is, when we think of data, so often we think of dashboards and reports, but data lives around us all the time. And does it always have to be, when we only look at data in aggregate, we lose that customizable personality of it. And so in these cases, I feel like this is data, but it's personal, and it's timely, and it really celebrates individuals. So we started these certificates of appreciation, as we have positive core and UTO that Christine helped us create. And so often those are really hard to quantify or qualify. How do we know people are living those cultural values? And to me, we celebrate that they are, and we write down those things that people don't notice. Just, this person always says hello to me every day when I walk in, and it matters to me, and that makes it transparent to everyone. So we created those certificates of appreciation. We also then pulled in Sun Awards, so often are given, and that's wonderful, and people feel appreciated, but no one knows. It's kind of only that person and their supervisor knows. So we wanted to bring light to that. And it was great. I think this is where Lev's leadership has made a difference, because I had an idea one time. I said, let's start a channel called UTO Celebrations. Everyone said, great. And I just did it. And it was awesome. And even, it wasn't always smooth sailing. One day my system went a little crazy, and it nominated the same 3 people like 300 times over a weekend. But I made a joke of it, and it was great, because everyone appreciated that it got fixed and everything went. And I think that's definitely been a great shift that I've seen. in UTO that there's definitely it's okay to fail and it's okay to make mistakes. And it's great to put yourself out there. So also we've now started and we're working on some culture badges where data can send someone and say you're eligible automatically without the person having to do that. So those are some examples of things that we've done. And next I'm going to show you some behind the scenes things. So for those of you who aren't technical, that's okay. You can just, they're just some nice pictures, right? But just to kind of let you know a little bit about the behind the scenes, and we're happy to share to pass this on. But just to kind of show what it takes for some of these. And in a lot of cases, it's not much, but the pay it forward, we initially did it, we call it pay it forward. The idea was that you would not only appreciate your coworker, but then they would appreciate two people was the hope. We started off with a Google form and it grew. And so we eventually made it a Slack form. So you can fill it out. We then take a tool called Alteryx where we go and we get more data with just that person filling it out with an ASU right. We're able to go get their department and what team they work in. And then we post it to that Slack channel, UTO celebrations. And then the person gets their own email with a certificate in there. So that's kind of the process. We've made it part of Slack so that by just doing /pay-it-forward, you can quickly fill out this form. We do have challenges. Sometimes people don't know the ASU right, but we work through those. You can pick a category of appreciation based on our positive core and a quick description. Once they fill it out, I do this very complicated thing and they get a certificate.
I want you to know that's the first time I've ever seen this very complicated thing. This makes me really appreciate what you do, Kristin.
It looks complicated, but it was a step-by-step process. So then they get this certificate and it tells kind of what they did with the logos that we've worked very hard. So that's kind of that. The Sun Awards, I will show you this. And if anyone here is interested in doing something like this for their own department, we've actually built this in such a way that with a data person or someone, we'd be happy to share that this could be done for any department as well. But every day at 3:30, we post anyone who got a Sun Award the day before. We say who got the Sun Award, what they got it for, who gave it to them, and then we also tag that person's supervisor that allows people to then celebrate. We also started then once a week, we kind of go down a list on the top earners. Sometimes we know they got one, but we don't know how many they've gotten. And so once a week, we celebrate someone who's gotten a lot of Sun Awards. And we also now have a new dashboard that hasn't really been shared, so we can look at that summary of those data. And Kristin, I'll be sharing that with you soon too.
Great. And
then this is that behind the scenes thing that takes, with HR access, we pull in the department and the Sun Awards, and we're able to do it just for the day before, and then we send it out to Slack. So again, this is something that is available if anyone is interested. And then culture badges is something we're still working on, but hope to be launching very soon, where we have badges such as attending a community of practice. We've thought about what behaviors do we want to reinforce and encourage more of. And so we take that Zoom data that tells us who attended those meetings. And we also know that as more and more people come in person, we also have a Google form someone can fill out so that we also give them credit. We then take that Alteryx workflow and then we email them a claim form where they can go get their badge, and then we're going to post that in the celebrations as well. So these are some of those badges. We not only are going to do the community of practice for attending meetings, but also we want to celebrate people who have gotten Sun Awards and certificates of appreciation. And then as well as nominating, we want to encourage people to nominate. So if you've nominated 5 people and 10 people, you can then get badges and rewards for that. And then today, hopefully, I hope you'll all take a minute to fill out the Google form that was easily set up, that takes the workflow, and it will post people who want to celebrate those who have done a great thing with data. And that is happening this week as we speak. So every time you see it, you'll know that we're influencing culture, hopefully in a good way, and as a large community. And that is that form that you hopefully have seen, the ASU Data Conference 2021. The behind the scenes work, And then you'll see it out in the Slack channel. And right now it just looks like we're the only ones out there nominating. So please go out and nominate. We want to celebrate all of ASU and not just those of us who filled it out so far. And then right now we have this badge under data governance. It's this is really, you know, a lot about the ethics and how we can shape the culture with data. And so it's not always about just showing numbers, but how can we have a really positive impact? So with that, and I know I went very quickly in that, if there's anyone here who wants help with that later, you can always come and do a consultation with us, and I'd be happy to sit down one-on-one and go over any of that and help you in your area. But so with that, do we have any other questions or comments? You can come off of mute if you'd like. It's definitely been great working with Kristin over the years and how we can have data tell our story each and every day.